WNIC, an iHeart radio station.
Hello and welcome to the March 21st, 2017 regular board meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Miss Reed, do we know? Have we
She
heard?
contacted me. She's got a death in the family close to her family.
Okay. Mr. Estheimer?
I'm present.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Koopser, I think is on his way.
Stuck in traffic.
That's what
He
I,
didn't contact me, so I don't
Okay.
know.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Dr. Pomponio?
Here. Okay, thank you. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Southgate's mission statement is Learning for Life. Southgate's vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Are there any revisions of the agenda? Okay. I have a revision. I'd like to add action item under section M, number 6, to accept the resignation of Melissa McDaniel. I would also like to add to section P, a work session item number 2, vacancy process and selection of new board member.
I'll second that if that's your motion.
Andy, can you make a motion?
I got to write first. I make a motion that we approve the revisions to the agenda for the board meeting tonight.
Any support?
I'll support that.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Green and a support by Mr. Estheimer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Are there any citizen comments at this time? No? Okay. Okay, we move on to presentations. Mrs. Duane.
Got some room, brother. We got some room.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us here. We're super excited to share with you our PBIS program that is for all 4 elementary schools and Davidson Middle School as well. So Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, which is elementary social work. I am Alexis Bartram. I'm a certified elementary school teacher. I went to Wayne State University, majored in math and language arts. I worked for 2 years as an assistant in a classroom in 7th and 8th grade. This is my first year at Southgate Schools. I'm loving it so far. I love the diversity. I love that what I get to teach are social skills.
I'm Jill Cretion. I'm elementary education, also certified teacher. I am teaching our social skills at Allen and Grogan, and I thoroughly enjoy that. I have 2 daughters that graduated from Southgate Anderson, and they're doing quite well. So I really do like the school system. Thank you.
My name is Candace Duane. I'm an elementary social worker here in Southgate. I was lucky enough to do my internship here and hired shortly after, so this is my 16th year here in Southgate. We're going to talk to you guys tonight about the PBIS program and some of the supports that we provide. We are PBIS district coaches. We provide monthly classroom lessons, K through 5, as well as other supports. What is PBIS? It's a K-12 prevention model used across the country and around the world. If anything, it's only grown over the years. Not another passing fad in education. It's definitely the foundation of most schools across the country and around the world. We emphasize the positive. We teach the social skills. We teach what we want to see rather than disciplining and punishing. It's research-based, lots of interventions, and it is shown to reduce discipline problems, to increase instruction time. This is our PBIS triangle you've probably seen before. All of our students are at the green at the bottom there. They all receive our monthly lessons, the PBIS language, and all of the PBIS supports. The middle are some of our kids that may have some behavioral issues. We work with them with some more intensive supports. And the very top there are our children with the most behavior needs. We've got lots of intensive supports through PBIS that we can put in place for those kids. So as the district coaches and building coordinators, we attend the RESA trainings, the meetings, the forums. We meet once a month in all of our buildings for our PBIS meetings to coordinate activities. That includes Davidson. We do lots of recognition, caught being good type things for their kids in all of the buildings. Under the PBIS umbrella comes our lessons. And so we really like the intelligence plus character is the goal of true education, because that's what our lessons focus on, character building. Student needs are changing. Southgate has always gone along with these changes, so our goal is to continue to meet the needs of our students and their families to support through social and emotional learning. Our lessons fall under the importance of social and emotional learning. We know that academics are of utmost importance, but until a child is able to identify and manage their emotions, effectively communicate and problem solve, build and maintain strong relationships, the academics are going to struggle. So that's our whole focus, to build the social and emotional foundation in our students so that they can achieve academically. We feel that by building this foundation, we help our teachers. They're then able to focus on teaching. Our students come with more needs every year. If we can meet these social and emotional needs, they can focus on their academics. So through our PBIS efforts, our K through 5 lessons, we can support our staff and students better to help improve academic achievement. All of the lessons that we do are based on the social emotional learning, SEL competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. All of our weekly and monthly lessons that we provide our students, K-5, are based on these competencies. We have monthly lessons. September, we kick off the year focused on respect and bucket filling. Carol McLeod is an author from right here in Michigan who wrote the book, Have You Filled a Bucket Today? It's all about doing and saying nice things to fill other people's buckets. So that's how we start our year off. I think almost any elementary student, anyone can tell you what a bucket filler is and how they fill buckets each day in Southgate. In October, we focus on Healthy Me and Red Ribbon Week. We talk at the elementary level about hygiene, making healthy choices, and like they do across the country, we celebrate Red Ribbon Week, making healthy choices for ourselves. In November, we move on to feelings and conflict resolution. Those lessons are focused on normalizing feelings, letting kids know that all feelings are normal, maybe not all comfortable, but they are all normal. We talk about how to let those feelings out safely, and we practice lots and lots of conflict resolution, how to be problem solvers, how to solve problems with our peers. December is all about kindness and caring. We talk about practicing random acts of kindness. In January, we move on to diversity. We celebrate diversity. It's a strength. We talk about how different isn't bad, it's just different, and diversity is what makes the world such an interesting place to be. February, we talk about bullying and friendship. Through our bullying lessons, we really work to make sure kids understand the difference between being mean and being a bully. We definitely focus on being an upstander, standing up for yourself and others. If you feel like you're being bullied, We explain that we don't tolerate bullying. We work really hard to focus on being upstanders, and then we talk lots about friendship skills, how to be a friend, how to make friends, how to keep friends. March, we do responsibility and careers. We talk about students' main job is to be a student, on time, working hard each day, taking their role as a student seriously, being responsible, and then we talk about future careers. April, we focus on citizenship, being good citizens, and that is not just at home, but also in their schools and in the community. We do lots of Earth Day activities. And then in May, we review all of our lessons from the year. We focus on getting ready for summer safety, and then we wrap up with teacher and staff appreciation. The kids love to be able to give back at the end of the year to the staff that they appreciated, and at the end of a long year, teachers definitely appreciate the recognition. Here's a word from some of our students about our lessons.
Titans. Hello. Tell me what PBIS is.
Positive behavior, interventions, and support.
What does that mean?
It sounds like you learn to make good choices. Our teachers alternate has just been good.
When we come to your classrooms to do our lessons, what are some things you've learned?
We learn our feelings out safely. I know the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated.
Respectful.
I know how to be responsible. I know how to keep myself safe.
School expectations. Titans are
Respectful, responsible, and safe.
So those are some of our students explaining what they've learned each month with us. So now that you know more about us and our program, the next time you're in our buildings, we ask that you take notice of the posters. A solid PBIS school doesn't just have posters on the walls explaining their expectations. The kids know the talk, they know how to demonstrate. So we ask that you not only notice the posters, but the language that our kids use. Ask them what the expectations are, how they demonstrate them daily. Every kid should be able to tell you Titans are respectful, responsible, and safe, and they can tell you how they demonstrate that each day. And also, we've seen you guys in the buildings. You're welcome to stop in during one of our lessons. You can take part in some of the discussion with our students and kind of get a feel for what we do with the kids each month. We leave you with this. We really think that it's important to be as proactive as possible, to be able to do all of the wonderful PBIS supports, our monthly lessons. We really think taking a proactive approach is what's best. Hopefully we reach our kids early, and by middle school and high school, they won't need as many supports, and we've set them up for academic achievement and lifelong success.
Any questions from the board?
Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
The self-esteem group, do you have that as part of the supports for the PBIS?
I don't offer all of the groups that I used to. With 4 elementaries, it's harder to offer all of those. We do a basic social skills, self-esteem / group, though.
And then the friendship, the ways to make friends and things like that, does that get followed up on, at other points in time? Because I know that at middle school, that's a big theme I see with kids. They don't have any friends, so I'd like to know if there's a follow-up to kind of go back to that. And
We do work hard with our middle school and high school counselors and social workers to try to make sure that our lessons and everything that we're teaching is being bridged. With us, our monthly lessons build on each other.
Okay.
That's definitely followed up on. And then not just with our monthly lessons, but a lot of the assemblies and the school-wide PBIS activities. Those are, but yes, we do work with the middle school when we send our kids up. And it's wonderful that Davidson is now on board with PBIS, because we are handing them, all of our 5th graders go to Davidson knowing the expectations. Titans are respectful, responsible, and safe. They go there already knowing everything about PBIS, and so Davidson kind of just goes from there with those kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Student representatives?
Hello.
Hi.
Tomorrow there is a Big Brothers meeting. There will be a police officer and the fire chief will be there. And they'll be discussing with them like all the safety and what they do throughout their jobs. Prom tickets go on sale next week from March 27th to the 31st. The tickets are $60 and they are sold during both lunches. Friday, the March 24th is the last day to sign up and pay for the AP test. The test costs $93 and is payable by check or money order. And the new NHS members have been inducted tonight. Congrats to them.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports.
I think there's an Asher rep.
Oh,
Sure.
was there one? I didn't
I'm
get
not sure.
anything.
Is there an Asher rep here tonight? Yeah.
Okay, come on up.
Sorry, it's my first time.
Oh, that's okay.
You were very welcoming. I apologize. So where do I sit? Right up by the,
Excuse me.
and introduce yourself to us first, because we haven't met you yet.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Monroy. I'm a student at Asher High School or school. So what's happening in Asher? The first round of progress reports came out last week. Parent-teacher conferences were last Thursday. It was very small. It was a very small turnout, but parents who did attend said they appreciated the opportunity to speak to their children's teachers. 17 students made the grade point average of 3.0 or better. 53 students had perfect attendance. There was also a bake sale that night, which we earned $55, and all the proceeds went to Asher's prom, or will be going to Asher's prom. There is a showcase. Showcasing the positive actions of Asher students is hopefully very contagious. Pi Day was celebrated on Tuesday, March 14th. Miss Jen, Mr. Clan, Mr. Hansen, and our security Dave were great sports about getting hit in the face with with whipped cream pie. The teacher, Miss Lackey, organized the event, said the students raised $95 with proceedings going to Asher's prom. Advisor Sarah Brooks is working very hard in organizing the PSAT, SAT, and Key Works test. These tests will occur after spring break. There are approximately 160 students that will be testing in April. M-STEP testing will continue into May. Advisor Melanie Holland is preparing for the 2017 graduation assembly, held on Thursday, March 30th. On that day, students have the choice to attend either the 11:15 a.m. or the 6:30 p.m. assembly, and students will complete their diploma information, hear from representatives from WCC, HFCEC, and Baker Community College and Michigan Works, the Red Cross and WSU, the TRIO program, and financial aid. In addition, a 2016 Asher graduate will address the graduates and talk about the success after graduation. Asher Student Council is busy selling prom tickets scheduled by May 13, 2017, and this year's prom will be held at the PRCU in Wyandotte. We are hopeful for another great year of this event. Everyone is welcome. Students in the yearbook are preparing to make Asher's memories for all students. Buddy pictures will be taken Thursday and Friday. Also, Spirit Week will take place next week. And students who participate will hopefully feel a sense of community with Asher students coming together for a fun, great event. Not to mention that this is the week before spring break. And that's all for tonight. I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Nice to
Brenda.
meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Okay, moving on to committee reports. Anti-bullying, there isn't anything to report, but the next meeting will be March 27th at 5:30. Finance?
Last finance meeting was reported out on the last board meeting. The next meeting will be held tomorrow.
At 5:30.
5:30, yes.
Thank you. Policy, we have policy revisions that are an action item from the previous committee meetings. We're proposing revisions to policy 0144.1, 9150, and adding a board member attendance policy. And the next meeting will be March 27th at 6:30. Legislative, we don't have anything at this time. Personnel and grounds and maintenance, there isn't anything at this time. So moving on to discussion, the finance report with Mrs. McLaughlin.
This time I have nothing to report. The anticipated date that the House and Senate will have their versions of the governor's proposed bill for 17-18 is right before spring break, so probably at the end of next week is what they're estimating. That way it gives everyone a chance to kind of digest it. So we're still waiting to see.
Okay, thank you. Curriculum report, Mrs. Pastor.
All right, so when we get back on April the 11th, there'll be an action item to adopt Wonders, which is a K-5 comprehensive reading system. So why Wonders? So in October, we had a vendor fair where we had 3 different companies present their latest comprehensive reading program. We had representatives from every building and every grade level, and they overwhelmingly chose Wonders. We also hosted an after-school session for those who wanted to see the system in January, and we even had Dr. Pomponio attend that session. So some of the reasons that Wonders was chosen was probably number one was flexibility. So for example, in Wonders on days 3 and 4, during what McGraw-Hill calls practice and apply, the teacher as the professional chooses how to extend the lesson of the week. The options include small group, small guided reading group, empowering word study, and comprehension. Literature anchor text, Wonders classroom library, student teacher choice, literature circles, and book rooms. Differentiation, so for example, each week includes guided reading books. So you'll notice that each of the books is entitled Extreme Animals, but the difference is there's 4 different Lexile or DRA levels. So they are on level, approaching, there's an EL, and then there's actually a beyond level for those students that are reading above grade level. It's an evidence-based skills and strategies. So right now, the teachers are choosing the skills and strategies, what they believe is most important, and these skills and strategies are not necessarily taught in a systematic or sequential way. The students at different buildings don't necessarily receive the same core instruction, especially in areas such as vocabulary and high-frequency words. The 3rd grade reading legislation requires districts to provide evidence-based core reading instruction that is comprehensive and meets the majority of the general education classroom needs and provides intensive development in the 5 major reading areas components, which includes phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. It includes online assessment tests. This is a great practice, which is MSTEP-like questions. This adoption would include an 8-year subscription of those MSTEP-like assessment practice. It also gives us a close reading companion for K-5. This is a consumable book, which means kids actually write in it, and the proposal includes 8 years of this consumable as part of the initial cost, so kids will be able to write in it and take that home. It also has a strong ELL component, so our English language learners, it has lots of scaffolding practice for kids that are just beginning to learn English, those intermediate kids, and those advanced kids. This adoption for the first time includes Beacon. So there are 2 ELA teachers at Beacon that teach K-5, and they'll each receive the full teacher editions for 2 grade levels and all the resources and 12 sets of student materials. So the total cost is about $229,000. This does include all the components: decodable readers, leveled readers, trade book classroom libraries, high-frequency word cards, photo cards, reading response boards, retelling cards, teaching posters, vocabulary cards, workstation activity, weekly unit, benchmark placement, and diagnostic assessments. 8-year subscription to the technology suite. The first year, this includes the technology department of McGraw-Hill working with our technology department and actually using our own student Southgate logins and passwords. So they'd be able to use their Southgate logins and passwords on the McGraw-Hill site. It includes 2 to 3 days of professional development and 8 years of the close reading companion consumables. The estimated free materials are about $500,000, and I do have 31A funds set aside for this purchase. If the board approves this purchase, April 11th meeting, the plan would be to order the teachers' editions to be delivered by June in order for the teachers to take those home if they so choose during the summer. So many people think that teachers go home for the summer and take the summer off, but many, many teachers work hard to plan for the following year, and we would give them that opportunity if they chose to do that. With the help of Andrea Shipacassi and Renee Chilson, who are former Reading Recovery trained teachers, we will be choosing some mandatory components of the program. Our plan is to also scaffold these mandatory components, meaning that we would implement a few components at a time to ensure that the teachers get comfortable with the materials to help them from becoming overwhelmed with all the new materials that I mentioned. I want to say this is the first proposal that I have made as a curriculum director, and I hope it's just the beginning. We have textbooks, materials that are falling apart across the district. To change the subject, we do have kindergarten orientation tomorrow at 6 p.m. at every elementary building. So those parents that have already registered, hopefully they all know about the session and they'll be attending tomorrow. April 10th, which is the Monday we get back from Easter break, we begin M-STEP testing. In fact, the high school will be doing science and social studies in the afternoon of the 10th, and it goes all the way until the end of May. So we'll be pretty busy with testing once we get back from Easter break. So I wanted to give you a little flavor before you had the opportunity to vote. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to take those at this time.
Mr. Estimer.
Could you describe the 31A funding, what that means, and a bit about that?
Yes, so 31A is the state at-risk funds. It is, the legislation used to really sort of narrow down how we could spend the money, and the money is pretty flexible at this point. The only thing we can't spend the money on is administration. Currently, the 31A funds Candace's position, who is here, Candace Dwayne, and the two ladies that were sitting next to her, Alexis and Jill Cretion. It funds a 31A counselor at the high school. It funds math specialists, and it co-funds with Title I the 4 reading specialists at the elementaries.
So the budget can, I'm sorry for my voice.
That's okay.
So the budget will, that 229,000, that's within that budget?
So I originally planned for that to come out of that budget before I knew about the millage money. I don't know exactly where we're going to do this. McGraw-Hill will allow us to also pay for it over 2 years, which is smart on our part because we get to keep the money. I just have to send them a letter. They're very, very flexible with us. In 2008, when we purchased our old Storytown, we spent $129,000. So considering that it's been 9 years later, I think that we're getting a really good price for what we're getting. So,
thank you.
Does that work well with, or can that be integrated into the Atlas Rubicon? Or is that just additional because it's physical books?
So I'm not positive how we'll integrate with Atlas Rubicon, because, so I have to check it out, because the online digital suite covers lesson planning and lots of things for teachers, and I haven't had that full training and won't until the teachers get trained in the fall with it. So we'll have to decide if we need to put things on Atlas Rubicon, because we don't want teachers to have to access the materials in two different ways.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Mrs. Pastor? Okay, seeing none. The superintendent's report, Mrs. Creation.
The parent perception surveys are open and available through March 31st. I think most of the building principals sent that link through an email blast, but if you did not receive that link or you did not provide an email address to your building and would like to complete that parent survey, you should contact the office of the building where your children attend, and they will they'll help you get that link to take that survey. This is important information for us. We use the results in part to determine our building and our district school improvement plans, and we also do a comparison for year to year to monitor progress on the areas that we survey. I also had a note about spring testing, so I will just add for parents to be watchful of the testing dates. It's important to make sure that students are in school on those days, well rested and well fed. And then finally, I'm hosting 2 parent input focus group meetings that will provide an opportunity to share thoughts on spending priorities for a portion of the millage money. The first one is Monday, March 27th from 6:30 to 7:30 in the Davidson Middle School Media Center. The second is April 12th from 6:30 to 7:30 in the Anderson High School Media Center. And parents and Southgate residents are invited to attend. Thank you.
Aren't we doing one at Grogan on Tuesday?
That's through PTO.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other citizen comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, moving on to consent. Mr. Green?
I make a motion that we accept consent items L1 and 2.
Any support?
Support.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Green and a support by Mr. Craig. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay,
Action item M1, district calendar 2017-2018. Ms. Creation.
I've provided 2 documents for you. First is the Wayne County 5-year common calendar. Board policy says that annually you must adopt the vacation days at a minimum for the next 5 years, but the common calendar hasn't been extended that far yet, so we're not going to actually do the formal adoption of the next 5 years. We'll do that in September when I have the updated 5-year calendar, but I wanted to provide it to you so that you had a frame of reference for the district calendar, which is the second document that I provided to you, and this is the calendar that shows start dates, vacation dates, conference dates, professional development dates, all of the records days, final exam days. I know it's a little sometimes difficult to understand all of the color coding. Thank goodness Mr. Firkus is also here to provide support for me if you have questions that I can't answer. Available to answer questions that you have about the calendar before you take action on it. It is fairly similar to the calendar that we currently have. We, for the most part, just shifted dates from 16-17 into 17-18.
do we ever have professional development dates beyond 1 year or 2 years?
No, we don't do those more than 1 year in advance. In fact, Mrs. Pastor and I will be meeting this week, or yeah, very soon. We will begin planning professional development for next year, and our PD planning supports our strategic plan, our building school improvement plans, our district school improvement plan, required legislation. We'll obviously be spending some more time supporting the implementation of the new evaluator models for all of our groups.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Andy.
I make a motion that we accept item action M1 to approve the district calendar for the 2017-2018 schools year.
Support.
Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Green and a support from Mr. Craig. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item action M2, the Fred Peters Memorial request.
So I've provided some information for you. Marianne Peters and Michael Peters, who are the wife and son of Fred Peters, who recently passed away. I never met Mr. Peters, but he was a longtime science teacher in Southgate, also taught driver's ed, so obviously he was a very hardy individual, and was very instrumental in the creation of the Nature Center. And when he passed away, the family contacted me and wanted to collect some donations in his name to go toward the Nature Center and some other things. So according to board policy, you must approve this kind of an installation, and they are asking for your approval to purchase a bench that would say in memory of Fred Peters. It would be installed in the Nature Center, and they asked that we use probably Mr. Shahowski and maybe Mr. Nazarjeski, some of the teachers who continue to support the Nature Center to find the appropriate place for that bench, if you so approve it. And with the remaining funds, they have asked me to establish a one-time scholarship, and I will be working with the high school to make certain that scholarship application is available this year for a graduating senior who plans to attend college and is currently on an IEP. So that's the information that they shared with me. So that part I can take care of, but it would be up to the board to decide whether or not this is an appropriate memorial. Just for the viewing public, I did go over the policy that we have on commemorating and establishing memorials on school grounds. I did go over that with the family, and they understand that if they were to put a bench out there, that if we were to ever, if we ever need to remove the bench, it could be removed. It could be moved to another location. If we had to do some alterations to the Nature Center, they understand that that's not necessarily a permanent structure.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that?
Sorry, what's an IEP?
Individual education plan. Individual education plan for
So
support services.
that would be a student with a disability who receives support.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Craig.
Just for the record, this is something that administration's in favor of, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and following that policy, 7250, the board considers all the recommendations for memorials to take place on a case-by-case basis, and we don't grant every one of them, so this is a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
I'll chime in for a minute. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I just 40 years, that's pretty good to be in this industry. Into one school district, I would commend the memory of Mr. Peters. I didn't have the honor of knowing him, but 40 years, that's pretty powerful.
So a little added story, when his wife, who also worked for the district at one point in time, came to talk to me about this, she brought a box of binders with meticulous records of the installation of the Nature Center and some of the plants that were in there. It's quite an extensive amount of record keeping, and I recently sent that over to Mr. Shahowski at the high school, and he was ecstatic to receive those. So that was just extra nice of her that she brought that stuff into us.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve item action M2 to establish the Fred Peters Memorial bench at Southgate Anderson High School.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Green and support from Mr. Estheimer. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item action M3, discussion, class size reductions at Davidson Middle School and Anderson High School.
I have provided you with information on class size, and I am requesting the addition of up to two, the restoration of up to 2 sections, or 2 teachers at Davidson Middle School and up to 2 teachers at Anderson High School. The intent being to reduce the class sizes in the core content areas, so that would be math, science, English, and social studies. I provided the current class sizes to you and tried to give you a good flavor of the number of sections that are over 30, and this would allow us to come pretty darn close to hitting that target of no more than 30 in the core content classes. Similar to some of the concerns that we had at the lower grades, kindergarten, first and second grade, getting all of those students off to a really good start and having a great foundation. By the time we get to the middle school and the high school, now we are talking about some of the state mandated testing at the high school. It's graduation credits, pretty important foundational courses for the success of students once they graduate. There's a lot of concerns that I've had. Our buildings really weren't intended to house that many students in classrooms. There are places where, if you have visited the middle school or the high school, there are places where the rows, the space between the rows are so narrow that you sometimes have to turn sideways. Anyone who's been a teacher knows that proximity can be a very important instructional strategy. It's difficult for students to be able to quickly rearrange their desks in order to do group work, cooperative learning, that sort of thing. It's very crowded in there. One of the other concerns that I had is many of the teachers who have core classes don't necessarily have an elective. So if I'm a social studies teacher and I'm teaching all required courses, if I have 5 sections of 34 to 36, by the time you compare the difference between if I had 5 sections of 30, I have almost another full class of students. So as an individual teacher, my caseload is much higher when you're teaching the required courses. Back to my concerns that I mentioned before at the elementary level, it's very difficult to differentiate the instruction. It's difficult to establish the relationships, just difficult to give the students the attention that they deserve. I wish that we were in a position to do this for all of our classes, but certainly to start in the core content areas would be a great place to begin. So what questions do you have on the materials that I gave you?
Mr. Green.
Ms. Creasy, we're talking 2 and 2, but you're talking core classes, so we have math, science, social studies, English. You're not talking 2 per section, right?
No, a total of 2 teachers at Davidson and 2 teachers at Anderson. But part of the thing that's happening that will balance this is that we do have some declining class sizes to begin with. So between that and adding some staff, they've run the numbers at Davidson, and they know that they need 2 staff members in order to get those class sizes down to 30. We've extrapolated to the high school, who's still figuring all of their elective courses. Numbers are similar enough to know that we should be pretty close to that target of 30 per, if we can add 2 to the high school.
Out of the 4, do we have an idea, are we going math, social studies, math, reading? Do we have an idea of where we're targeting for these 4 positions?
Perhaps at the middle school, it could go a couple of different ways. Many of our teachers at the middle school are multiply certified, and so we haven't done staffing yet. I believe that they were the most likely at at the middle school is going to be science. But again, because people are multiply certified, we haven't finished running the numbers for students on an IEP, and so they haven't been added into the sections, so we don't know what's going to be higher or lower, so we're not quite there yet. I don't know what the content areas would be yet at the high school. Again, we have several teachers at the high school who are multiply certified, and you can switch them into one content area or another.
Thank you.
I guess the other thing about the high school is there's so many more sections, it's easier to staff.
Any other discussion? Okay, I just want to say that it's important that we have differentiated instruction in the classroom, as each student has their own learning styles and abilities and disabilities and can be hindered by large classroom settings. And it's important that our students thrive in an environment that helps them think critically with more engagement in the process. So my concern has always been with the funding and staffing, and if we get the additional teachers. But I believe that, as we move along through the future, that you're going to be able to adjust the staffing appropriately as we need it.
So one of the things that we've worked very hard on is to learn how to monitor and predict our enrollment more closely. I've said this, many times. Asher is a surprise because they tend to come, those students come from any number of districts. We don't have them now to determine who's going to be here in the fall. Our own students, we have a better ability to predict whether or not they're going to return. In fact, we ask them, and parents have been very good about committing to us and letting us know. At the very least, they let us know if they plan to move. Obviously, there's always some surprises. So we've gotten much better at being able to predict our enrollment going forward. We've learned a lot of very painful lessons over the last few years, and when that comes to staffing, we know ahead of time. We see things coming, and we can plan a year in advance. One of the things that I didn't see coming was the funding issues that we ran into with the private schools. That was very much a surprise. I guess the good news about being able to restore some of these teaching positions is that certainly increases our ability to retain those teachers who are going to lose their positions by virtue of the fact that we're not going to be providing the specials staff to the private schools next year. The other thing that I think, and I need to say this to the board and to everybody involved, clearly we're gonna need to tap into some of the millage money initially to fund these added positions. That millage money is available, for the next 5 years, and then the county will have to vote to renew that. It's essential that the board and the administration don't lose sight of the fact that as we use money initially to fund staffing positions, every year we have to start to try to pull some of that funding over to the general fund side. It would be irresponsible, to say the least, if we just assumed that we're going to spend millage money for the next 6 years to fund teaching positions, and then in the horrible event that money isn't renewed, then suddenly you're out of money, you're back in a deficit situation, and we're right back where we started. So I just think that's important for everybody to remember, that we have to be very careful over the next 5 years that we begin to plan on how to move that funding over. And, we're going to be watching things like our enrollment and our attrition. And as teachers retire or resign, we hold off. We wait to see if we replace them based on what our enrollment is coming in. I think we have a great system started. I think we've learned, like I said, lessons the hard way, but we're certainly getting better all the time at being able to predict our enrollment and match our funding to meet the needs of the district.
So, Mrs. Creation, that's exactly what our concerns were last meeting, is making sure that we weren't underfunded after the 5 years. So thank you for the support and added attention to what our concerns were, because the other thing too, with concerning the millage funds, my biggest concern was accountability and making decisions with the community input, and so requesting that input thank you for the 2 meetings, because that's going to add to, further transparency with the decisions that we make and as we go along, as we move forward. And then also with that, I requested, and you were accepting of it, the dashboard, in addition to what we have on the website for the bond, to have a dashboard up on there to track all the expenses for the millage too. So.
It'll start next month.
I believe that's an agenda item for tomorrow night for the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
We're going to start providing the board with some of that information, and then we need to figure out and get some technological support to get that dashboard on the website.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
I make a motion that we accept the class reduction sizes of 2 at Davison Middle School and 2 at Anderson High School for the 2017-18 school year.
Support?
I'll support.
I have a motion from Mr. Green, a support from Mr. Koopser. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to chime in. I'd like to, make the public aware and to follow up on Ms. Cretion, that in 5 years, as we start to move these funds in the general fund by law, also, we have to take into account the retirements, as she talked about, where if we have a social studies teacher, for example, and we need or see the reduction in class sizes, we just do not replace that social studies teacher. I think that's important to note. Also to note that even with these additions into the teaching staff, which are required, and it's wonderful for the teachers and for the students to get the more one-on-one and differentiated instruction, is that there's still millage money left. We're not using all the millage money on this in 1 year, so we can use the millage money for the focus groups, and still have the input of the community to do other things with the remainder of the millage money. We're not, robbing all the coffers for this proposal. We're just doing what we think is, judiciously correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
And there's a whole lot of secondary teachers that thank you.
Item action M4, discussion of the track team for their out-of-state overnight field trip request to Ohio.
I believe that this is a new field trip. It's new to me. It's possible that they've done something like this in the past. So typically for an athletic team, when they are traveling out of state or overnight, we don't bring those to the board for approval because it's a postseason competition. This is an invitational. This is something for experience. It's for elite athletes to attend. It is an invitational. I'm a former track mom. These things are great experience for kids. I have all the confidence in the world in Coach Childs with taking a group on a venture such as this, but it is a new trip to us, and it does require board approval.
Thank you. Any discussion? I just want to say that it's great to see our athletes thrive and attend competition and opportunities like this and build character in both school and through challenges, and good luck to them in competition, or in Ohio.
Something, yeah, I had a question. I'm sorry. Can I?
Did you have something, Mr. Coops?
Thank you. Just curious if this type of invitationals are built into the budget at all.
This particular trip is funded by the student activity account for
Okay.
track and field, which is not part of the general fund. It's
Okay.
one of the internal activity accounts where they fundraise and deposit money in the account, and they use it for equipment, supplies, trips such as these. And that's what that account is.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Green?
I make a motion that we accept item action M4 to accept the track team's out-of-state overnight trip to Ohio for the purpose of competition.
Okay,
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Green and a support from Mr. Craig. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay,
Item action M5, board policies recommended changes.
Okay. Although this is the first reading of the updated policies, the policy committee has worked on them as a review, but also on an as-needed basis. The revised policies were sent beforehand to the full board for review and edited on Google Docs and as a regular attachment through email. Policy 9150, school visitors. This is a one-word revision. I just have the policy paragraph language. Individual board members who are interested in visiting schools or classrooms on an unofficial basis may not make the appropriate arrangements with the principal, which the change is may instead of shall. And as parents, we volunteer on a regular basis, and parents are able to go into the buildings and visit the office first, sign in, and volunteer at any time. But as board members, we should be able to do the same without calling ahead, because sometimes the principal isn't there, and we want to change just may, shall to may. Therefore, I'm proposing the one-word revision. So, do you want to discuss those item by item? Do you want me to read the whole thing? Okay. Policy 0144, point 1 is compensation. We're proposing 2 items only, minus any budget calculations or figures. Number 1, we're eliminating the specific number amount, as it's a negotiated item by the board that may change and is reviewed annually. So currently, we have the figure of $22.50 listed in the policy, and we want that eliminated. To coincide with the proposed attendance policy, the stipend is currently broken down into monthly payments, but in order to establish a structure for absences, we're moving to a per-meeting stipend. This allows the board to deduct these stipends for the meetings that are not attended. The second change is to add the following addendum. Board compensation is paid on a monthly basis with a single meeting stipend. The per-meeting stipend is an annual stipend divided into 24 meetings per year, of which there are 2 meetings per month set in the master calendar each year. Additional meeting stipends will be calculated for additional meetings, including committees and district meetings. The same applies in reverse, that an absence at a meeting will not be compensated. This does not include separate allocation for board training or professional development expenses established on the board policy 0144.1 compensation. The update is an addendum is in compliance with the board policies. Board policy 0131.1 bylaws and policies requires the board to make corrections and revisions in an open meeting. And also board policy 0142.7 orientation. The board shall encourage the attendance of new board member orientation and training, so that does include the training. So that's the proposed change or revisions for the policies that I addressed for those 2 policies and the added board attendance policy. Any discussion?
With the packet, I included a sample compensation form. If this policy is adopted, then at a certain point in time, your stipend currently right now is divided over 12 months, and you are paid once a month on the second pay of the month. That would stop, and then to be compensated every month, you would have to itemize every meeting that you attend, and then it would be calculated based on the rates in the policy. Those would have to be turned into the business department, and then we would pay you as it's turned in. And that applies to all the meetings, including the regular board meetings, because now it's on a per meeting basis. So there's a sample, I included a sample form for that the board members would be required to complete, sign, and the sample has on there that would be also signed by the board president before it was turned over to the board office.
Mr. Green?
Do we know, I know a lot of changes were made in the last few years. Do we know what or how long this policy of 2250 has been in place and what the previous pay was?
It was previously $2,500. A number of years ago, when there was a concession of 10%, and correct me if I'm wrong because I was not here at the time, that was also taken by the board. So that's how the stipend was reduced to $2,250. It has been a number of years, probably at least 6 or 7, I think.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I had proposed a compensation, or me and the Vice President discussed proposing a compensation committee outside of our board as a non-biased committee for Mrs. Creation to look at and possibly set up so we can take a look at what the outside committee thought that we should make. So we'll discuss that at a later date as well. Any further discussion?
Madam President?
Mr. Koopser?
Just two points. Is this going to be voted on both policies at the same time with the same vote?
Both policies and the attendance, actually, there's three. There's a new
Sorry.
policy.
And the new policy, which we haven't discussed
Right.
yet. Okay. I'm sorry. I guess I can give my personal opinion on this, and maybe there's discussion as it relates to it. The $22.50 is, if you break that down, it's less than $200 a month, whereas our time that we spend on this, working on the board and the work that we do to review, spend on committees, prep ourselves for this, it doesn't, I mean, no one's trying to really make money on being a board member. And it puts me in a position where as I'm looking at the individual items in which I'm responsible for attending, being a board meeting, being in a committee, itemizing it makes me feel like almost this hourly type of employee, if you will, in terms of a board stipend on an annual basis. It's puts a perspective on it that it feels as though the value of what I'm doing is therefore defined by which of these individual meetings I attend or the committees that I would attend. So it just, in my mind, it feels as though a board member, an annual stipend of the $22.50 or whatever may come up as a recommendation, seems like it would be, in my personal opinion, more appropriate. And there's a lot of work now that would need to be done in terms of record keeping and turning it in and getting signatures and to try and meet this board policy then. So it's just, I was curious what discussion other board members might have as it relates to that concept of this.
Typically, other boards in the Wayne County get paid per meeting stipend, plus they get officer stipends. They get a lot more, and some get less. So in the Wayne County Association of School Boards, they've also created a spreadsheet to track and document and actually do a study on board pay and who's getting paid what, because it's all over the map. So do you have any specific questions, or do you just want to state?
I was curious if that was kind of a discussion in terms of my opinion as related to it. And it seems like it possibly explodes the general budget by what appears to be potentially as much as $10,000 from what my math was in terms of what the cap board expense in comparison to an annual stipend at 7 members. Would that be correct?
Mr. Koopser, yes, it is correct. It's an approximately $10,000 increase, and it's an estimate as far as the number of district meetings. And we outlined in there how we got up to the estimate. I knew what regular meetings there were, and then an estimate of how many additional meetings a board member might attend. So that amount is based on, that one line item is based on 80 meetings, which may sound like a lot, but spread over 7 members, it's really not. So we're looking at a cap of $25,270. Right now, it's just over $15,000 for the stipend.
And the committee meetings and other meetings, other than the regular full board meeting, are just a fraction. They're just the fraction because it's not a full board attendance. But basically, it's created so we set up a structure for anyone who's not attending, doesn't get their pay, as opposed to someone who's attending in, multiple meetings. Okay, any further discussion?
I just have one comment.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with paying by individual meetings, but at the very least, I support that we restore the board pay at the very least, to what it was prior to the concession. That's been a goal of mine to, to help lead the district to a place of financial health and to lift all of the concessions. And I do think it would be appropriate, the board voted, and I understand the reasons why in recent history not to do that, but it's just my personal opinion that it would be very appropriate, at the very least, to go back to the 2,500 prior, at the very
Would
least.
you have a separate vote, or would it be?
With all of these, in the past, we have voted on like a whole list of policy changes all at once, so I think it's at the will of the board to decide if you want to try to vote on this as a package or if you want to go one by one. That's your choice.
So did you, would the board feel comfortable to moving back up to the 2,500 in this particular package? We can move up to because we did take a cut voluntarily, I think 7 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, from what I understand, the board took a 10% pay cut when the rest of the district did. So I think that, as Ms. Cretion pointed out, I think that would be appropriate. And I think that, paying for the individual committee meetings inspires people possibly to attend. And it also will make somebody feel as if the regular board meetings, if they weren't getting paid for coming,
Right.
perhaps it would inspire them to attend. So I could see the logic behind it, and I support that. We're not getting rich from it. It's just a matter of trying to.
And also to point out too, I know you're new, Jason, but a lot of the board members in the past and currently give back multiple times to the district. Scholarships, supplies, they just constantly give back their time and their energy. And this isn't all encompassing of going out to the buildings and all the training and that doesn't include that. So, okay. With this as a package, Andy, do you want to read it as an action?
Is that the will of the rest of us? Anybody, that we want to vote on this as a package? Or do we want to vote it individually? Anybody?
I don't have a preference either way.
I can vote for the whole thing.
Okay.
Jason?
I think we should do each one individually. There's only 3. It's not going to take that long to.
Are we adding the
treat each
increase?
one.
Should we do that?
We're talking 3 different ones, right? We're talking
Talking about
the
the
school
3.
visitors, the compensation, and the board attendance. So there's 3
Do
separate.
we need to add the compensation in there? Do we need to just get it on record?
Well, I
Because
think
it's
as
not
you
gonna
have
be-
it right now, you would vote on the board attendance policy, you would vote on the school visitors, and then you vote on this as it's written. I didn't mean to muddy the waters.
There's no figure. We're just eliminating the
I threw something in there
figure.
that isn't on this proposal in terms of I support an increase.
And the point was to take the amount out of the policy
Right.
anyway. So we
Right.
don't want to
So
put
we
it
don't
back
have
in.
a-
We don't have a set number right now. These
For
are
the
just.
policy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we don't want to put it back in, but I think just to give, it sounds like we have some varied opinions on each individual policy. So to give each member the opportunity to vote their opinion on each policy, I think we should handle the 3 separately.
Okay. So we will take this 5A, B, and C. How's that? I make a motion that we approve the revisions on item action M5, section 9150, school visitors.
Support? Can I have a support?
Point of order, you can't support.
You can't support.
I'm asking for support.
Oh, sorry. Support.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Green and a support from Mr. Craig. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I make a motion that we approve item action M5B, which is to eliminate a concrete number from the compensation for the board.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Green and a support from Mr. Craig. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Coopser,
No.
Dr. Pomponio.
Yes. 4 yeses, 1 no, motion passes.
I have a point of clarification on that. Am I using the language with the added red? So that we're
Yes.
adding the addendum and that is yet to be figured out?
That was including the addendum.
Okay.
Right, it's removing the amount and then adding the addendum.
And the addendum is all of these different amounts?
The stipend for the meetings. Okay.
In action MC, I make a motion that we approve item action 5C, which is revision of the board attendance policy.
Support.
I have a motion for Mr. Green and a support for Mr. Craig. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
I make a motion that item action M6, that this board accepts the resignation of Miss Melissa McDaniel, effective immediately.
Support.
Okay. Yeah, just any discussion? Okay, we have received a letter of resignation from Melissa McDaniel as of March 18th, 2017. I would like to thank Mrs. McDaniel for campaigning for the seat of the Board of Education and wish her all the best. The official vacancy of this board seat is effective March 18th, 2017. We do not need to do anything further, but I wanted to have a motion on record to accept the resignation of Mrs. McDaniel. Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Green, a support from Mr. Craig. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, is there any employee representatives at this time? Okay. Any information and announcements?
Madam President?
Mr. Green?
I will speak on myself first. I would like to speak Asher School, as I talked to the principal. Multiple teachers have stepped up to help coach the basketball program at Asher, as the student representative so eloquently spoke on all the activities in Asher, so I will not go through those. I will say that if there's ever an opportunity for me to see Dave take a pie in the face again, I would like to be invited. As for Grogan Elementary School, due to the wind outage, the Field Fest has been rescheduled to a date to be determined. They have a casino night, which is this Saturday night, if anybody is still interested. I believe Mr. Coopser is going to attend with us there. Actually, not myself, because I will not be able to attend, unfortunately. Personally, I and Ms. Reed, who was not here, attended the junior ROTC dinner on Friday at Anderson, or not at Anderson, at Crystal Gardens. It was a wonderful event, and I commend all the cadets and the teachers that were there to put on that event. It was amazing. I just got a text during the meeting also, since Ms. Reed is not present with Anderson, is that the athletic program in the community supported a Buffalo Wild Wings Challenge, which went on for 5 weeks, which is kind of like a March Madness. Happy to report that Southgate came in first place in the Buffalo Wild Wings Challenge, which garnered $9,126 total, the final total, which I guess, as I'm seeing, that Coach Dobeck has sent this to Ms. Pomponio, so I will let that one go and let her handle that one. That is it for me. So I'm going to be long-winded as always, but this is for Mr. Estimer. I'm going to read his notes, if you will indulge me, due to his voice going out. The district-wide half-days this Thursday. Ford line reminders, tomorrow's kindergarten orientation at 6:30. This Friday, in lieu of a more traditional daddy-daughter dance or mother-son night, Ford Line will be hosting their first annual Family Masquerade Ball at the Grecian Center. Not every girl has a dad, not every boy has a mom, so that was the thought behind this event. It's not too late to register, but Mr. Estheimer would like to point out this event and wish them great success. At Shelters, Mr. Estheimer had the opportunity to visit Mrs. Babcock's first grade class yesterday and read to them. He states that they were a great bunch of kids, and he looks forward to the opportunity to visit the school and interact with the children and staff in the future. Reminder, tomorrow's kindergarten roundup from 6 to 7. Friday, they're having a used book swap where they get to bring up to 5 used books in exchange for the books other children have brought in. The Bingo for Books event is next Thursday, March 30th. On April 13th is the Reading Counts Assembly that he will be attending. It should be a fun time watching the kids play in bounce houses and see what the top readers in each class get to do in Mrs. Gundick's class this year. On Saturday, May 6th is the PTO-sponsored Colorathon. The community is encouraged to participate. Visit the Facebook page at Shelters Elementary, PTO for details. The deadline for donations and signups has been extended through April 12th. Finally, art students are creating a bottle cap mural for Earth Day. It'll be an important lesson on cycling, recycling, repurposing for the sake of art. They are in need of bottle caps, plastic water bottle caps, pop caps, all that other good stuff. In regards to this, and Mr. Estheimer thanks you for listening to me.
So again, on behalf of Mr. Estheimer, there's a note from the coaches, Mitch Dobeck, Sam Childs, and Lisa Fast, congratulating the champions for Buffalo Wild Wings Spirit Bracket Challenge. A big thank you to the Southgate community who rallied for their support around that great cause. And overall, they brought home $1,537.36 for the grand total to be $6,662.30. Money raised throughout the whole challenge. They brought home the gold, won an extra $2,500 to take the final count to $9,162.30. So on behalf of also Mrs. Cuspa and Jan Ferenz and myself, we also participated in this challenge. So congratulations.
If I could add to that, because I think people are already wondering, you know, what exactly were we raising the money for? Those coaches represent 3 sports. They're not the only sports that are involved in this. There's been discussion for a long time to renovate, rebuild, renew, restore the weight room in the weight training facility. So this is startup money for that. I've already had several phone calls from very excited coaches. They have a place to deposit the money, and we will be meeting in the very near future to really do some more specific planning for what this project is going to look like. They are ready to rock and roll. So I would say to the community, stay tuned. You'll be hearing more about this.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to move into a work session and child care preschool program updates. Ms. McLaughlin?
So last month, myself and Crystal Priest, who is here again this evening, the Director of Child Care and Latchkey for the district, provided information to the board regarding the infant, toddler, and preschool child care program. It was operating at a pretty significant loss for the year. The prior year's loss was $186,000. So after that meeting, I took the opportunity to provide more information and do some updates to our current budget and do some projections for next year. So I wanted to share those with the board. The report that was included in your board packet, the one that has real small handwriting, or printing, is the current year of 2016-17. So the first column that says current year-to-date budget, that is our current budget as of the budget that was adopted in February. And it shows income of $20,000 and expenses of $222,000 for a net loss of $222,000. At the time that the budget was adopted, the Learning Center was in the process of doing some changes to the program, doing some marketing changes. There were some rate changes that were approved by the board. And now that all of that has taken into effect, I went through and with Crystal Priest's assistance to try to figure out where we're going to be at the end of the year. So the column that's labeled projected budget shows that the revenue will be at $65,500. And there was some, which is an increase in revenue of $45,500. That's with the change in the hours, the increase in the rates, and the additional children that have registered. So the projected budget changes the net loss from $202,000 to $162,000 for 2016-17. So it was an overall decrease in the loss of $40,000, which for a beyond mid-year change is a very good step in the right direction. So when I present the final amended budget in June, these numbers will be incorporated. Before I go any farther, I don't know if you have any questions on 2016-17. Actually, the expenditures didn't change a whole lot. I actually, for how the operations of the program were before we made these changes, the expenditures were actually too high. So when I went through everything and projected out how many more weeks we have, and based on our attendance right now, the expenditures were very close to where we are going to be at the end of the year. So there was only about a $5,500 increase in the expenditures.
Okay, I'm looking off of Jason's, but can you send that to me, because I didn't get that in my packet?
Oh.
It was laid out on the table.
Okay.
There's one new one. There's an additional sheet that I laid down on the table before we started. The rest of this should have been in the packet.
Yeah, that one I didn't.
I have an extra one if.
Yeah, can I have that? Thanks.
So if you have questions, fine. I've shared this information with the board, but again, I think for the viewing audience, I want to do a little background information on this program because we've talked about large figures and loss, and the child care program years and years and years ago was set up at Asher as a free service to Asher students. So it was not originally intended to be a tuition-based program. It wasn't intended to make money. It wasn't intended to break even. It was a service for students, and that goes back many, many, many years. There was a time when adult education funding was substantially greater than it is today. And so to offer this kind of a service to the students for free childcare is basically what it was. The hours were only during the school hours of Asher. That would not have been anything unusual. It would not have impacted the general fund. It was that way for a lot of years. Typically in the past, the Asher budgets were largely the responsibility of the director of Asher. A portion of that, which is the grants, are approved at the state level. No one questioned this for a lot of years. I think then when the district went into deficit, it didn't occur to anybody to start looking at this level of detail to some of these programs. It was just a service that we had always provided. So fast forward a little bit to when Ms. McLaughlin began to realize that the gap was shrinking in terms of what we were realizing from funding for Asher and what it was costing the general fund. And so we've started looking at a lot of different programs, this being one. We recognized that there was a loss, but at that time, everything was rolled in together. It was preschool, it was childcare, and it was latchkey. So for the newer board members, one of the first things that she did was separate out latchkey. We got that out. That's a tuition-based program, established that was self-sustaining. So then the next step was now we look at preschool, infant and toddler preschool, or childcare in the preschool programs. Now we see that that we are having to support that with the general fund. That's kind of where we started at the end of last year, coming forward to this year. in our current situation, it's something it's just not appropriate anymore. The funding that we receive for adult education is not sufficient to provide free childcare. And it hasn't been free for a while. We've been charging those students tuition. So that kind of is the short version of the history of this program.
I also wanted to add for 2016-17 that as of today, the preschool program has 22 part-time students and 4 full-time students, which is an increase of 12 enrolled students since I gave the report in February. And the infant and toddler has 10 part-time children and 6 full-time, which is an increase of 2. So you can see the efforts of what we've been doing and have been working. It's also providing parents with an opportunity for their children who might be on waiting lists for other preschool programs to, instead of their child being at home when they're 3 or 4 and they can start getting the social interaction, to come to our learning center. Last week I went to the preschool class to read to them, and that's always such a delight. And actually, there was one little girl that was pretty quiet, and I spent some time watching what their next activity was, and Crystal Priest shared with me that she's one of those children. She had just enrolled, that was her first day. And it was just a real privilege to be able to come to the class on her first day. And even today, they have another new student in preschool. So parents are looking at our program more and more to, as an opportunity for their children. If there's more questions on 16-17, if you flip to the other side of what was included in your packet, worked on an estimated budget for 2017-18, assuming that the program, infant, toddler, and preschool were at full capacity. And full capacity for the program, even though the state says that we can have 25 in each room, we really, if you look at the infant, toddler room and all the equipment that goes along with the children, that's really not the best way to take care of the children during the day. So it has been determined that capacity for our purposes is 16 in the infant, toddler room and 20 in the preschool room. So based on those figures, it requires a lead teacher and an assistant teacher at each level, infant, toddler, and preschool. And I've calculated what their estimated pay would be, assuming full capacity at full time for the year. Itemized all the costs similar to what I had done before. Estimated total expenditures of $285,000. One of the things that concerns me and will concern me going into next year's budget is health insurance. We have a new president, and there's already some changes started in the works, so we really have no idea what 2018 is going to bring regarding health insurance. Those costs may be high, they may not be. It's my best estimate based on the information I have. The revenue, the total revenue would be estimated to be $248,000, which brings us, if we were at full capacity, to a loss of $36,000 compared to our current loss of $162,000. Now, the hope, is that with starting them in the preschool program, that will be the feeder into our kindergarten program. And in order to break even, we would need 5 students every year to continue on in Southgate schools. So this year we have 8 graduates of the preschool program. Okay. So we have there's a potential there, and it's greater than 5. So the loss is much less, and there is a great potential to be able to break even based on continued attendance in Southgate schools. Are there any questions on this schedule?
Let me, I want to go forward first because
Please do.
However.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, please jump on that, 'cause I see lots of holes.
So we've told you about the past. We've looked at, and I apologize, I don't remember which board member asked for this, let's run the numbers for full capacity. Closer, but there's still that risk. So back to the drawing board we went, and it becomes apparent that the infant toddler childcare is very expensive, and that's difficult for us to support. If we flip the program entirely to 3 and 4-year-olds, preschool, and childcare, it's a very different financial picture, and I'll let Teresa walk you through that sheet. It's clear to me that this is the direction that we will go next year for many reasons. Financially, we're solvent, and it accomplishes what was, my number one goal all along, to capture those 3 and 4-year-olds in our district, and help them to make the best choice to enroll in our kindergarten programs. That allows us, we can, my wheels are already going 100 miles an hour. We can bring the principals in, we can take the kids and the families, we can introduce them directly to our kindergarten classes. We are already getting 3 and 4-year-olds enrolling that can't get in to Head Start. There's a waiting list. And so we know that we have parents that perhaps can't afford some of the other private preschools and are on a waiting list for Head Start, and this appears to be a very affordable option for them, and that's just all good news for us. So Teresa can, I don't know if you have questions right away, if you want her to do the financials.
I've got more.
She asked for questions, and she's got more. Go
I've
right
got
ahead.
more. Before I talk about the preschool plan, just to add on to the, if we were full capacity for 17-18 with our current programs, that is with our current staff. That is without adding any staff. It's no overtime. It is putting them at the maximum hours. It also does include time that the director would be to fill in some of the gaps. So that's all incorporated in that $36,000 loss. So the sheet that was at your seats at the beginning of the meeting is the projected budget if we go with the plan of a preschool program only as preschool / childcare, because we would have the hours of 7:30 to 5:30. So if parents need childcare before and after the hours of instruction actually start, we would have that.
Kind of like a latchkey for preschool? Is that essentially what you're talking about?
Pretty much, yes. Yes. So with the normal staffing that we have 6 individuals. If we did a preschool childcare from 7:30 to 5:30, we would use both rooms for preschool that are currently there, and we would have a lead teacher and an assistant teacher in each room, and then there would be a floater. So their hours would be less, but there aren't enough hours with just the 2 teachers and the 2 assistant teachers to cover all the times, but it's too many hours for the director to be able to contribute all that time to make up the difference. So we have a floater, so it has 5 of the 6 individuals. The 6th individual, we have someone retiring in the latchkey program, and so we're looking at shifting that position to the latchkey program, so there would be no loss of staff. With the total weekly hours, and it is a little bit less than if we had all 3 programs, but it is still 35 hours or more, except for the floater, which is 25 hours. Projecting their annual pay, and then the FICA and the retirement, and including the same indirect costs for the director and supplies. There's a total expenditures of $209,000. The revenue is projected to be $263,520 at full capacity. And again, these are assuming full capacity, so full capacity would be 40. And so that we would have excess revenue of $54,411 under this plan.
Is that a total of 40?
Yes, yes, because the capacity for preschool with the staffing is 20 per room. If you went to 21, you would have to have another staff person. And if we had the demand, we would adjust for that. But right now, we're planning on at 20 and 20.
And I think we figured the break even would be,
The break even for this, if we didn't have full capacity, would be 32 full-time.
Pretty close.
And if you recall, I said right now we have 22 part-time and 4 full-time. The part-time students, that they come 4 hours a day, and some of the reasons that they're part-time are, some of them are children of Asher students. Talking to Crystal, she believes a lot of it's because of the timing when we started promoting the Learning Center, as it is, the new Learning Center is right now. It was the middle of the year. It was past the middle of the year. It was February. A lot of this could very well be timing. Some of it could be they're checking us out, too, and with trying to make a decision for next year. So it's very clear that the preschool plan is a much more viable plan for the program and the district. And so that's the information that I provided.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Mr. Craig.
I'm gonna talk first about the preschool with the infant toddler, the loss of 36,000, and then the optimistic view that would be made up by retaining those students. That's assuming that those are not students that we would get anyway. And I don't know how that's measurable, because that would be the difference, the true difference that you could measure. So I can't buy off on the however many students come is what we can count, and count that towards the loss. And both of these programs, they still don't take into account the things that I've been asking for more than a year now, which is to start assuming some of the true costs of doing business with these programs.
It does not include the indirect costs, such as the building costs for utilities, maintenance, janitorial services, my time that I work on this.
Right.
Yes, it does not.
HR's time,
And hiring people, yes.
so let me respond to, and again, it's difficult to capture, as you said, how would we know if they would enroll in kindergarten or not anyway? We have very limited preschool in Southgate schools versus some of our neighbors who have bigger programs. I worry that some of the loss of resident students to other districts is the result of them starting in preschool in another community, and you get comfortable, especially if you're in or near a building, you get in that habit of driving your kids that direction. So that clearly there's still a risk. I wonder if we see increased enrollment, I mean, especially our own residents like that. It's disturbing to lose a resident kindergarten student to a neighboring district. I guess the other possibility is the potential to grow large enough that we could do this in more than one side of town. And that would, ultimately, the goal is to try to get them back into the buildings. If you are in an elementary building, that's all the difference in the world. This seems to me a great opportunity to see if we can grow the preschool program.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to talk about on the next side of it, which is more of the preschool childcare. You're kind of losing me a little bit, because the preschool programs that I'm familiar with are generally half-day programs alternating days of the week. And that doesn't sound like that's what this is. This sounds like this is more of a daycare type setting, which is come in and drop them off all day and then they stay for whatever days you pick, or what would be the model for that?
I can respond, and then maybe Crystal can respond to that, too. I'm familiar with a model similar to this, where there were defined times that were for preschool. However you choose to do your preschool program, if that's every day, every other day, half days, whatever. But there are those times that are very intentional about being preschool. And then on the opposite ends of it, it becomes latchkey, because we do believe that we have staff who are already starting to use the center, and they're going to need more than preschool.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm looking at, is the preschool teachers, is that salary similar to what we would pay latchkey?
Yes, it is.
That's similar to what we pay our latchkey people right now. So we're not paying them extra just because we're
No.
calling it this program. This would be similar to
It is.
what we're already doing, and it would fit in, okay? But we don't have the model for what this is. We don't know if this is 3 half-days or 2 half-days, or...
Go ahead.
Please. Yeah. I'm just trying to see how you're getting to the 3,600
Well,
per
and
week.
it's assuming full capacity, and just kind of like Asher, sometimes you need more than that to get.
Well, and that's what I'm trying
Capacity.
to understand, what full capacity is.
We do have either half-days considered 4 hours, full days 8 hours. So we're open for 10 hours, so when they talk about the childcare, or how you refer to it as latchkey, it's beyond 8 hours.
Okay.
So you do have the option, it's minimum 2 days a week. You can do 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, half-days, or full days. So we do
And then you
have
could
we do
extend
have
those
that.
days too, so it's like almost whatever you want to pick. Somebody could come in and say, I want to drop my kid off at 7:30 and pick them up at 5:30, 5 days a week. And then you would just decide the price for that, and then, so this is more of a daycare model, though, than a preschool model, I think.
No.
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 There's half-days, and there's full days.
And there's instruction, there's set instruction during that time.
Much like Head Start. Head Start had half-days or full days, and there are preschools that go 5 days a week.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with how Head Start works. I can only speak to my own experiences with it, but it was more of a classroom type setting. It was either 3 days or 2 days, and you went either morning or afternoon. There was no all-day option. And if you wanted to drop them off early or stay late, that was straight up latchkey. You know, they moved into a different room and they were doing a different function. So they kept everything very structured so that everybody was getting the same amount of time. Everybody was getting the same in that 4 hours, whether it was 2 days a week or 3 days a week. They were getting the same everything. Not the kids who stayed all day got more or less than the ones who were going 2 or 3 days. They were all kind of the same. And by doing that, it maximized their capacity, because you only allow 2 days or 3 days, either AM or PM. And it kind of maximizes if you can do 20 kids at a time, you can essentially see 40 kids a day. And it maximized the model. But this seems more to me like a daycare type setting, even though it is structured with some instruction. Kids who are there 5 days a week are going to get a different instruction than kids that are there 3 days, half days. And that wasn't really.
But I think
guess that wasn't
I think in our minds, that's a parent's choice.
And we do have a curriculum that we follow. It's called Creative Curriculum, and it is based on a full day. And they are getting full day instruction every day.
Okay.
Are there comparable models like this around the area?
Well, I think more of what Mr. Craig is referring to would be someone who has a little bit more space, maybe an extra room to have that type of separation, which we only have 2 rooms. So if we wanted to do, say, a half day for a 4-year-old and then a half day in the AM and the PM, we don't have the space for that. If that's what you're
Well,
if
the
that's
program
more
I'm
what you're
referring to
to.
only used 2 rooms. They They had 2 teachers in one room, 2 teachers in the other room. You started right when school started. That was run out of an elementary school, but it started right when school started. And when all of the other kids in the school were going to lunch, those kids were released. The new group of kids came in, and they stayed until the end of the day, and they were released at the end of the day with the regular
Yeah.
student, with the K-12 or the K-5 students. And it was only run out of 2 rooms, but they did
Well,
Monday,
I can't agree
Wednesday,
with
Friday, or
it,
Tuesday,
anybody
Thursday.
missing anything if they don't attend 5 days, because the way the curriculum is set up, there's a lot of repetition, there's a lot of rereading of books, there's a lot of recall. So I feel that regardless if they're there for 2 days or 3 days, that they are getting the full learning experience.
Okay. They're moving along as a group at some point with some group of kids.
Yes.
Well, I think
Absolutely.
if you look at preschool education, any preschool education that you get is a bonus.
Sure.
So it's not like anybody is getting shortchanged, it's
No,
just
no, no, it
some might
wasn't-
get more than others.
No, it wasn't a point of getting shortchanged or getting more than others. It was a point of, if you don't have a unit, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday AM, Monday, Wednesday, Friday PM, Tuesday, Thursday AM, Tuesday, Thursday PM, I don't know how you move that unit along through the curriculum, you know what I mean? I don't know how you measure where they are in the curriculum unless you're doing it almost individually, where they would kind of move the group through, you know, we started numbers at this point. Now, some kids still needed help with numbers, but they still mostly, you know, they did numbers. Then they moved on to letters, and then, you know, and they didn't stop doing any of those things, but they moved them all as a unit, essentially. And it sounds like what you have is kind of, because it's a la carte, you can come in and pick whatever you want. It would be hard to move a unit along. Not to say that it still wouldn't accomplish anything, it wasn't what I saw
Well,
as the model for this that would maximize our
There's
space and our time.
also a assessment that we use along with it, and it is individualized. So we keep assessments, we know where everybody's at, how everybody's progressing, who needs help in what area. They work individual, they have small groups, they keep the same small groups for 3 months before they move on again. So they are measured continually, daily.
So if you have new people coming in, you can assess where they're going to be placed as far as what point they're able to pick
Well,
up and learn?
I'm hoping in September, when we're not going through this, enrolling all these new students in February and March and April, I mean, it's wonderful, we are, but when September comes, to have our class in place, and we can move together from there. Because, you know, like Teresa said, the day she came last week, we had a new student come in, another new one who just started this week.
Teresa, back to you. You mentioned earlier, and then I didn't I must have missed it, or maybe I didn't catch it. We're looking at these numbers at a projection of 40 full-time, however that plays out, half-time, full-time, whatever. What's the break-even point? Do you have that number? Like, not 40's capacity for this number. What's our break-even point? Where would we just make this a wash?
32 full-time, an equivalent of 32 full-time.
The equivalent of 32.
I mean, that's 78% of our capacity. That doesn't leave a lot of margin for, missing it.
80%.
I guess I want to see the model going forward next year, because we're going to be asked to approve this for next year, right?
No, we don't need board approval to make a change in this. This is, we're just sharing information. We would need, I mean, the board would have to vote to dissolve the program, but this is a programming change.
Okay. Well, I guess my concern would be, what do we do if we only get 20 students? What's the contingency plan for it if we only get 20 students? Or if we only get 28 students, are we going to run this at a loss?
Well, we would do what we had started doing this year. We would reduce scheduling, but still keeping within the staffing guidelines. And you have a 10-student gap with any one person. And so as soon as you go, if you have 21 in the classroom, you have to add a person. You only need that one person to go from 21 to 30.
Right.
By the same token, if you drop and then you're within down to the next level, then the staffing has to be adjusted so that
to meet those guidelines.
Madam
Mr.
President. Crystal, what's our numbers of preschool right now? What's our preschool enrollment?
22 part-time, 4 full-time. 26 total.
But 15 full, right? So we're looking to increase over double to make this a break-even point within the next couple months.
Well,
What's our plan for that?
For the next couple months.
For next year.
For next year, sure. Sorry. I mean, we're going for 15
What are you going to do
full-time,
right now, is what he's asking, to get
To prepare for next year?
Exactly.
Yes.
I want to start enrolling ASAP. This is the time of year that it begins. There's many preschools who have already started. So I would like to get going as soon as possible.
I believe you're also planning another open house. You would like to plan another open house?
Yes. Send the flyers back out in the Friday folders again. I have so far 10 inquiries that I've received, phone calls for the fall, which I need to get back with. We have potentially 18 students in the preschool right now that we can get them to come back, and 3 in the infant toddler room who will be of age to be in preschool. So that's 21 current students who could return, plus 9 inquiries, so and that's not even doing any advertising yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think a couple of other things that if we're ever to grow the preschool program, which it's part of the 10 and 10 governor's plan to improve education. It's been a focus for the state for a long time. We regret having lost our preschool in the past. We see a direct correlation to the number of resident kindergarten students that we're losing to other districts that start preschool elsewhere. I think we need to take a small risk on this program. We've adjusted multiple programs we brought to the board when something isn't going well. We've reduced, we've combined, we've made adjustments that I think we had to. And as Crystal said, we've not promoted.
It's linked to them coming to that preschool if they'll stay in the district.
I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question. Going forward, we're gonna track the 4-year-olds, and we'll know if they enrolled in our kindergarten. When we looked at closing the GSRP program a couple of years ago, and we gathered some data from the preschool program in Wyandotte, and we had Southgate resident students who had started preschool in Wyandotte, and we know that they enrolled in Wyandotte kindergarten. That's the best data that I had. There were other. I remember Wyandotte because I remember calling the preschool director over there. There were other districts that we looked at. I don't know if I still have that information or not. That's when I first realized that where you go to preschool could be a real direct link to starting kindergarten. I guess the other thing that I've been thinking about is young families who would typically have a 3 or a 4-year-old might be our families who are renting, and we know that we have a lot of renters in this area. Again, I can't predict it with any accuracy, but I have a sense that younger families with 3 and 4-year-olds that might find their way to our program, and clearly our program is going to appeal to perhaps a different family than the family that's going to be able to put their students in a more expensive, private, a couple of days a week program. This is going to offer more options to more families. It would be nice to think that we establish a relationship with young families with 3 and 4-year-olds, and then if they're looking to purchase a home, or if they're considering where their child is going to go into kindergarten, that they might be motivated to find housing in Southgate.
So when I was the principal at Corman, when we first moved into Corman, we had the Southgate preschool going on,
Yeah.
And eventually Mary Lamos took over the Southgate Preschool and ran her Montessori through Corman. And while that program was right down the hall from us, we doubled our size at Corman. And it was after we became K-5 and we no longer could house the Montessori that we began losing students in the district.
Okay. Well, I like that link because then I know that at least we're going to retain some of the students.
I don't have percentages, but I can tell you
Yeah.
a good portion of the.
Well, I look at the outgoing students every year, and I can tell you that we're losing a lot of kindergarten Southgate residents to that program that moved out of our building.
And I would just like to add one thing to that. Since we began registration in February, we have 4 Southgate residents who are starting kindergarten in the fall, and that was their first preschool experience.
Okay. Mr.
I
Craig?
have one more question. Do we not have one empty classroom at an elementary school?
So empty is a relative term with elementary schools because if it's empty, they will take it over.
Do we not have one?
We currently do not have unused classroom space in any elementary building.
Right, I know that they're all used at some level. Do we have, could we find one classroom,
Not without displacing a teacher.
a full-time teacher? Or are we talking
We do.
somebody who goes off of, or like shows up there part-time and does like music or something for a while?
Oh, okay, one at shelters. I stand corrected.
That I know about.
Okay.
Could be others. But
And that was kind of my thinking, is that, you know, this program is on the Allen side of town, and were we to expand, obviously, we're gonna look to that, but, you know, we're adding a section of kindergarten and a section of transitional, we've got some bubble classes moving through. It's a balance. Is it appropriate to displace art and music for preschool? I don't know, but we would look at that if we grew to that point.
If it was, if it was a full-time teacher in there, then that would be a different situation. But if it's somebody who's there for a couple hours, and then they go to another school for a couple hours, I guess that would be my question. Because I think this program, a preschool program, a true preschool program, thrives better in an elementary school.
Don't sit.
I'm not counting in our music room.
No, but just because an art teacher is only in one building for a couple hours doesn't mean that that room isn't used all day by the other music teacher coming in, like there's shared
They're cycling
spaces.
through it,
Yeah.
okay.
Apparently
So at
there's,
Ford Line, they share an art music room, which
Okay.
they're losing. At Fort Line, they're losing that because we have to. We have to add a section for our basic classroom because our numbers are so high, we're gonna be out of compliance. So that's gonna change at Ford Line.
Okay.
We're
I guess
growing in some
I guess I just see
places.
this program, if we're going to go forward with it, I see it thriving better at an elementary school.
And that would, I would agree, after being at Corman, that is something we would look to in the future and make that plan. And I know that it's difficult to get the licensing, and you have to
Right.
start months and months
Sure.
ahead of time before you do those things because of all the.
Yeah, they got to come in and look at it. I know.
Well,
how the
several
state
years
is.
ago, we had it at shelters, right?
GSRP.
Oh,
We gave that program.
And then that program moved to North Point temporarily, and then that was that.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
good.
I appreciate it. Any more discussion?
That's curious, if we done a benchmarking as it relates to revenue, in terms of how we compare it to other preschools? I know that we talked
The
about,
rates are just
Can
below.
you repeat that, please?
that we benchmarked against other districts as it relates to rates.
Yes,
Okay.
comparable.
Comparable in terms of, okay, I
To
guess. that-
school districts, not to private.
Okay. So to Jason's point, in terms of, so I've got two different schedules in front of me. And I've got-
Actually, 3, but yes.
Well, I've got three. I've got the one from current year, and then proposals on both of them, so estimated budget for 2017/18. and one of which is including infant, toddler, and preschool. The other one's strictly preschool. And I guess I'm trying to understand why, it sounded like Leslie said that it was quite clear that the direction should be heading towards the preschool only model with that. And then I'm trying to hear that we're not going to get a vote on this in terms of which schedule would be adopted. It would strictly be a change. So I guess I'm trying to understand, I've got two different schedules here for next year. Are you trying to,
You asked for this information.
Okay.
So we provided the information, including the infant toddler, because that was requested. In the meantime, this led us to we need to look at a different direction. We need to find out what is viable, because I don't count this as, we must get 5 students to enroll in kindergarten to loss. That doesn't sound like a good plan to me. So in a very short period of time, we've looked at the notion of the 3 and 4-year-old programming, which does not appear to put us in a situation of having to tap the general fund, and clearly meets the goals that the district has in terms of growing the preschool program again for any number of reasons. So no, this does not require board action. This started as you wanted information, we're providing information, and we're giving you, even more information than you asked for, to demonstrate the direction that we intend to go next year.
I have one more question.
Mr. Craig?
thank you, that helps.
What other districts offer all-day preschool? Because you said we
The
were
closest
comparable,
is
so
Wyandotte.
Wyandotte has all-day preschool?
And they have the extended day, too.
Okay. So basically, this model that you're proposing is what Wyandotte does?
No, this is me putting a budget together for it. I did not look at Wyandotte's.
And it does, and Head Start is full day and half day.
Okay.
And they have some funding changes. I don't know what their changes are going to be next year, but they've Head Start, that was one of our dilemmas with the GSRP, that was going to need to be full days.
Okay. And you guys already pulled rates, you said, from other preschools?
We did that when we asked you to approve the rate increases.
Could I get a copy of that, I'd like to get a copy of which ones you pulled, how they model their preschool, whether it's half-day, full-day, or whatever, and then how they break down their pricing, so I could see that.
Okay. I don't have it with me. but
No, I
can
understand.
get
Yeah,
that to you.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on this topic? Okay, we're going to move to 2, and we're going to discuss the vacancy on the board. So basically, the date of resignation was the 18th, so we have 30 days. That states in the policy 30 days. It doesn't say business days, so we've always gone by days. So we have until April 17th to make a decision on a candidate. So did we place that ad in the News Herald, or is it pending?
It'll go in tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay. Did he need to send a proof or no?
I emailed it to you.
Okay, I didn't get it. Was it later? Because I didn't see it.
It was, well, we had it by 11:30 this morning, we had to have it in, so shortly after that. But it's.
That's okay.
It
I
was
seen the
similar to
other.
the one that you and I looked at
Yeah.
that morning. It just, I changed the
Okay.
dates to when we wanted them to have it in by, and what date, what time.
Okay, so for Wednesday, it's coming out?
It'll be in tomorrow's paper.
Okay. So once we get the response in the forms of letters of interest, and I believe they can come in the form of email too. Is that true, or
We need a signature.
signature? Okay,
They can mail it or drop it off.
okay. So anyone interested in the opening for the board seat will have to present a letter to the board office with a signature stating your qualifications or your letter of intent. Once we get those responses, we're going to review all of them and decide on the candidates that we want to interview. So, and basically the question has come up, do we get the next person in line from the election? And that's not how the education system does that. The city council does that. Other areas might do that, but we don't do that. We go through the interview process. So basically, we will come back after, we'll see what happens with the ad and see what candidates we get. So far, I believe we have one and one pending that's been dropped off, that's showing an interest. So I believe after the break, we're going to interview, and then at that time, once we interview and select the candidates, we can be prepared to offer them make our decision at that time. So this will happen pretty much after the break. Yeah, we'll have a special meeting for that. And the policy is 0142.5 regarding vacancies. So if there's any questions at this time.
Do you want to look at meeting dates sooner rather than later? Because I think we have another board meeting on the 30th to do goals, so.
And what's the date of the input, the community input for April? I know I had it down.
Yes.
12th.
Wednesday,
Okay.
the 12th.
Yeah, 6:30 to 7.
So that's after the winter break, or the spring break? Okay. So we can decide that. We don't need to do that now, right? We can decide that.
For when you want to have the interviews?
Yeah, when we do the special meeting.
Yeah, as long as we have 18-hour posting.
Okay.
Notice.
Mr. Green?
Madam President, posting is closing when?
March 31st. So it'll be in tomorrow's paper, and they have until March 31st at 4 p.m. to bring those up to the board office or have them, we have to receive them in the mail by the 31st at 4 p.m.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Support.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Okay.